They were three of the biggest names on one of television's most beloved shows, The Voice. Kelly Clarkson, Blake Shelton, and Gwen Stefani. Voices that shaped not only music, but millions of hearts around the world. But behind the laughter, the banter, and the standing ovations, there was something much deeper. A quiet story of love, loss, and the kind of friendship that can only be born in the toughest moments of fame. Because while the world saw the glamour and the glory, few ever knew the truth. That behind the cameras, each of them was fighting their own emotional battle. And somehow through it all, they became each other's strength. This is the real story behind The Voice. Before the fame, before the flashing lights and the Grammy wins, Kelly Clarkson was the kind of artist who lived through her lyrics. Every song she wrote came from a place of raw truth, heartbreak, resilience, and survival. But what the world didn't see was how much she carried behind that smile. After her marriage ended, the headlines painted the picture of a woman broken by love. But those close to her knew better. Kelly wasn't broken. She was rebuilding. Piece by piece, moment by moment, often showing up to The Voice with a strength that didn't need to be loud to be powerful. There were days she'd walk on set with that familiar spark, encouraging contestants like they were her own family. But behind the scenes, she was navigating a storm, custody battles, public scrutiny, and the pain of having her private life turned into tabloid fuel. Still, Kelly never let the world see her crumble. She turned every scar into a lyric, every heartbreak into harmony, and in that process, she reminded everyone, including her fellow coaches, that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's courage. But while Kelly found her strength through music, someone else on that same stage was facing his own emotional reckoning, one that would soon change everything. Blake Shelton, the easygoing, charismatic country star the world knows from The Voice, carried a quiet depth that few noticed. On camera, he was the laid-back mentor, the coach with a quick joke or a teasing remark. But behind the charm was a man shaped by heartbreak, loss, and the relentless glare of fame. Blake had experienced the highs of music stardom, but he also knew the weight of private struggles amplified by public attention. Every relationship, every personal challenge played out under the unblinking lens of social media and gossip columns. Yet, despite all that, he maintained a remarkable ability to observe and empathize with the people around him. When Kelly was navigating her divorce, Blake didn't just see a colleague, he saw a friend in pain. He quietly offered support, using humor and presence as a shield against the chaos surrounding them. It wasn't grand gestures, it was small acts of care, moments that showed respect for Kelly's feelings without overshadowing them. And then there was Gwen Stefani, Blake's partner, whose own life intersected in unexpected ways with both Blake and Kelly. Their triangle wasn't about jealousy or rivalry, it was about navigating emotions, relationships, and loyalty under the harsh spotlight of fame. Blake's ability to balance his love, his friendship, and his public persona highlighted a rare form of emotional intelligence, one that allowed him to support others while staying true to himself. But as Blake's quiet care for those around him played out, it became clear that the world of celebrity often misunderstood these dynamics. Rumors and gossip simplified complex friendships into stories of conflict, but the truth was far more profound, a story of empathy, respect, and unspoken loyalty that would define the heart of The Voice. Gwen Stefani entered The Voice with the kind of star power only a true icon could carry. Pop royalty with a punk rock edge, she radiated confidence, charisma, and undeniable talent. But beyond the cameras and the glamorous persona, Gwen brought something equally important: emotional awareness. Her relationship with Blake Shelton was in the public eye almost from the start, and she quickly realized that love on a reality show came with its own set of challenges. Amidst fan speculation, tabloids, and social media scrutiny, Gwen had to navigate not just her feelings, but the emotional landscapes of the people around her, especially Kelly Clarkson, who was quietly enduring her own heartbreak. Gwen's approach was subtle yet powerful. She celebrated her happiness with Blake, but never at the expense of acknowledging Kelly's pain. Interviews, social media posts, even casual moments on set reflected her understanding that genuine friendship requires empathy, patience, and integrity. Gwen recognized that being a partner in the spotlight meant balancing personal joy with sensitivity toward those whose lives intersected with hers. Her actions reinforced an important truth. Friendship isn't a zero-sum game. Gwen showed that it's possible to love openly while still creating space for others to heal. She modeled a rare kind of emotional intelligence, one that allowed her to nurture her relationship with Blake without overshadowing Kelly's journey. Together, Gwen, Blake, and Kelly formed an unusual but resilient trio, a network of support, respect, and understanding, quietly resisting the simplifications and drama that the media so often tried to impose. On the surface, The Voice is a competition. Singers battle for the spotlight, and coaches play a strategic game to guide them to victory. But behind the scenes, the show became something far more intimate for Kelly. Blake and Gwen, in a place where friendship, trust, and emotional resilience were constantly tested. The trio navigated a delicate balance. Kelly, in the midst of her divorce, was processing grief while still showing up to mentor contestants with her trademark honesty and humor. Blake had to honor his partnership with Gwen while maintaining his long-standing friendship with Kelly. And Gwen had to celebrate her love with Blake without minimizing the pain of her friend. Each interaction required conscious effort, sensitivity, and intentionality, a careful choreography of respect that few viewers ever witnessed. What made their bond remarkable was that it wasn't performative. There were no scripted gestures, no staged moments for the cameras. Instead, the strength of their friendship came from subtle acts, checking in privately, listening without judgment, offering reassurance, and creating a safe space for vulnerability. They turned a high-pressure public environment into something rare, a support system that allowed them to be authentic, even under the scrutiny of millions. Yet the media rarely saw these nuances. Headlines simplified Kelly as the third wheel, portrayed Blake as the charming center, and framed Gwen as the radiant partner. Reality, however, was far more complex. The three of them managed a shared emotional ecosystem, proving that trust, empathy, and patience can exist even in the glare of fame. And while this dynamic shaped their personal relationships, it also had a profound impact on the show itself, creating a space where contestants could witness not just mentorship, but the power of emotional intelligence in action. For Kelly, Blake, and Gwen, one of the greatest challenges wasn't just navigating personal emotions, it was managing how the world interpreted them. The media and social platforms thrived on drama, often reducing complex friendships into simplified narratives that sold headlines. Kelly as the third wheel, Blake as the affable charmer, Gwen as the radiant partner. These portrayals ignored the emotional labor that went on behind the cameras. Every laugh, every glance, every supportive gesture was scrutinized, dissected, and often misrepresented. Simple acts of care became fodder for speculation, and moments of vulnerability were twisted into perceived tension or rivalry. Kelly, in particular, bore the brunt of this misrepresentation. While she was quietly processing her divorce, she was also publicly celebrated as a powerhouse mentor. Social media painted conflicting pictures, yet she navigated the dual pressures with remarkable poise, refusing to let misinterpretation dictate her actions. She continued to support Blake and Gwen openly, demonstrating that empathy and friendship could coexist with personal pain. Blake and Gwen, too, were conscious of the public gaze. Blake's humor often served as a buffer against unnecessary tension, while Gwen's honesty created clarity amidst speculation. Together, they maintained agency over their private interactions, refusing to let external narratives distort the reality of their relationships. This dynamic revealed a rare truth about human connection under pressure. Genuine friendships require intentionality, patience, and the courage to maintain integrity, even when the world misreads your intentions. Their story became a masterclass in balancing authenticity with perception, a lesson both for viewers and anyone navigating relationships in the modern age of constant scrutiny. For Kelly, Blake, and Gwen, one of the greatest challenges wasn't just navigating personal emotions, it was managing how the world interpreted them. The media and social platforms thrived on drama, often reducing complex friendships into simplified narratives that sold headlines. Kelly as the third wheel, Blake as the affable charmer, Gwen as the radiant partner. These portrayals ignored the emotional labor that went on behind the cameras. Every laugh, every glance, every supportive gesture was scrutinized, dissected, and often misrepresented. Simple acts of care became fodder for speculation, and moments of vulnerability were twisted into perceived tension or rivalry. Kelly, in particular, bore the brunt of this misrepresentation. While she was quietly processing her divorce, she was also publicly celebrated as a powerhouse mentor. Social media painted conflicting pictures, yet she navigated the dual pressures with remarkable poise, refusing to let misinterpretation dictate her actions. She continued to support Blake and Gwen openly, demonstrating that empathy and friendship could coexist with personal pain. Blake and Gwen, too, were conscious of the public gaze. Blake's humor often served as a buffer against unnecessary tension, while Gwen's honesty created clarity amidst speculation. Together, they maintained agency over their private interactions, refusing to let external narratives distort the reality of their relationships. This dynamic revealed a rare truth about human connection under pressure. Genuine friendships require intentionality, patience, and the courage to maintain integrity, even when the world misreads your intentions. Their story became a masterclass in balancing authenticity with perception, a lesson both for viewers and anyone navigating relationships in the modern age of constant scrutiny. Music has always been more than just a career for Kelly Blake. And Gwen, it's been a lifeline, a way to process emotion, and a tool for connection. For Kelly, every note she sang carried the weight of her experiences, heartbreak, resilience, and the quiet victories of personal growth. Blake's songs reflected introspection, love, and the lessons learned from past pain, while Gwen's artistry blended vulnerability with performance, transforming personal challenges into creative expression. When these three forces converged on The Voice, the show became more than a competition. It became a space where mentorship and music intersected with emotional healing. Behind every critique, every coaching session, and every duet lay a shared understanding of vulnerability. Music provided a common language through which grief, joy, and empathy could coexist. Kelly often used her platform to create emotional spaces for both contestants and colleagues. Her openness encouraged Blake and Gwen to engage with their own feelings, fostering a rare environment of mutual support. Blake's humor and grounded presence provided balance, allowing moments of levity and reflection to ease tension. Gwen's honesty and sensitivity reinforced the importance of integrity and empathy, ensuring that emotional authenticity thrived even amid the pressures of a public stage. Through these shared experiences, the trio demonstrated that music isn't just entertainment, it's therapeutic. It allowed them to process personal struggles collectively, to support one another, and to model emotional literacy for everyone watching. In a world that often prioritizes spectacle, their story revealed the quiet power of music as a tool for connection, reflection, and resilience. When Blake Shelton announced his departure from The Voice, it marked the end of an era, not just for the show, but for the relationships that had come to define it. For over a decade, Blake had been the constant, the country star with humor that disarmed tension, wisdom that grounded chaos, and a warmth that turned colleagues into family. His exit was more than a professional shift. It was an emotional turning point for everyone who had built their rhythm around his presence. For Kelly, Blake's departure hit deeply. Their connection had always been built on unspoken understanding. Two artists who'd weathered heartbreak, loss, and reinvention, often using humor as armor. Without him, The Voice felt different, quieter, less familiar. Yet true to form, Kelly didn't dwell on loss. She honored Blake's decision, celebrating the legacy he left behind, while carrying forward the lessons they'd shared about authenticity and resilience. Gwen, too, faced a bittersweet reality. Supporting Blake's decision meant accepting change, even when it came with the ache of farewell. Their love story, once born out of the show, now had to evolve beyond it. But Gwen's calm strength and perspective reminded everyone that growth often requires letting go of what's comfortable, even when it's cherished. Blake's exit symbolized more than just a career milestone. It marked the transformation of a bond that had transcended the boundaries of television. The laughter, the tears, the inside jokes, they became part of The Voice's heartbeat, a legacy of empathy and connection that no new season could replace. But even as the curtain fell on one chapter, another was quietly forming. A new phase in which each of them would continue their journeys, forever changed by the shared years that had shaped who they became. In the fast-moving world of entertainment, stories often fade as quickly as they rise. But what Kelly Clarkson, Blake Shelton, and Gwen Stefani built on The Voice wasn't just a show, it was a legacy of humanity. They redefined what it means to be authentic under the spotlight, showing millions that fame doesn't erase vulnerability, and that strength can exist in softness. Their friendship reminded audiences that connection doesn't need to be loud to be real. Kelly taught the power of resilience, how to rebuild when the world is watching. Blake showed the beauty of quiet loyalty, the kind that never seeks credit, just presence. And Gwen embodied grace, balancing love and empathy with the wisdom of experience. Together they created an atmosphere that changed The Voice forever. Contestants didn't just learn how to sing, they learned how to feel, how to express, how to connect. Behind the humor, behind the music, they modeled compassion in an industry that often forgets it. Even now, as they move on to new chapters in their lives, their bond continues to echo through every stage, every interview, every heartfelt lyric. Fans still talk about their chemistry, not because of fame or gossip, but because of the rare authenticity they shared. Their story reminds us that fame is fleeting, but kindness isn't. The most powerful voices aren't just the ones that can hit high notes, they're the ones that can reach the heart. And long after the final applause fades, that's the harmony Kelly, Blake, and Gwen will always be remembered for. In the end, The Voice was never just about finding the next great singer. It was about finding humanity in a world that often forgets what that looks like. Through years of shared laughter, heartbreak, and healing, Kelly Clarkson, Blake Shelton, and Gwen Stefani reminded the world that behind every stage light, there's a story, one filled with emotion, growth, and connection. Kelly showed that pain can be transformed into purpose, that even in moments of loss, you can stand tall, sing louder, and rebuild stronger. Blake proved that humor and humility can heal more than fame ever could. And Gwen, with her calm strength, revealed that love is not about perfection but about grace, the quiet choice to stay kind, even when the world isn't. Their journeys crossed at the perfect time, each bringing what the other needed most: support, understanding, and a reminder that even under the harshest spotlight, you don't have to lose your humanity. Together, they created something rare, a friendship that wasn't built on competition or image, but on compassion. As the cameras stopped rolling and the seasons passed, what remained wasn't just the music or the fame. It was the lesson that true voices, the ones that echo long after the applause, come from the heart. Because in the end, The Voice wasn't just a show. It was a reflection of three souls who dared to be real when everyone expected them to perform. And that, more than any trophy or hit song, is the legacy they'll leave behind.